Imagine a place, a structure so famous, so magnificent. It was named one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. And yet for all that fame, we haven't been able to prove it ever really existed.
An incredible thought, isn't it?
So for this deep dive, we're going to take a tranquil journey into that very quiet historical puzzle. We're just going to slow down, absorb the details, and, explore this ultimate search for a lost paradise.
And that sense of a quiet, lingering mystery is really at the heart of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. When you look at the sources, you realize the mission isn't just about finding definitive proof.
Right.
It's more about understanding why this story why it's endured for so long. We're essentially charting two competing narratives.
The classic vision versus something else.
Exactly. The romantic classic vision of the Gardes in Babylon, and then this highly compelling engineered marvel that may have actually existed much further north in Assyria.
I think we have to start with the dream itself. The classical writers, they really painted a picture of impossible luxury.
They did. And you have to remember the context. Mesopotamia is a land defined by arid heat, by vast, dry plains.
So a lush, tiered garden would be the ultimate fantasy.
It was an oasis that actively defied its own environment. Writers like Diodorus Siculus and Strabo were imagining something that just shouldn't have been there.
A constructed paradise.
That's the perfect phrase for it. And Diodorus, in particular, gave us a very specific mental picture. He described the gardens as being roughly 120 meters by 120 meters.
Huge.
Massive. And built upon these man-made, multi-level stone terraces.
And they weren't just stacked like bricks.
Right.
The terraces were designed to look natural.
Exactly. They described the structure as sloping upwards like a Greek theater, reaching heights of, maybe 20 meters. So visualize that.
An artificial mountain.
A colossal artificial hill completely covered in lush greenery, large trees, exotic aromatic plants, all blooming in the middle of a desert. It was the ultimate statement, a kind of Garden of Eden.
And the traditional story that goes with that vision is what really makes it unforgettable. It's this beautiful piece of royal romance.
It really is. This is the peaceful, powerful narrative attributed to the Neo-Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar II.
Who ruled around 600 BCE.
That's right, roughly 605 to 562 BCE. And the legend is that he built this spectacular green monument as a gift for his wife, Queen Amytis.
Because she was homesick.
She was supposedly from Media, a mountainous region, and she missed the green, hilly landscape of her homeland.
So a king conquers nature itself, just to ease his queen's sadness. It's a perfect story.
It is a perfect, captivating story. And this is where we have to introduce that gentle friction of history.
Okay.
The Babylonian historical texts, which are our most primary source, are completely silent on this.
Silent.
Completely. Specifically, there is no known record of a Queen Amytis in any of Nebuchadnezzar's own voluminous inscriptions.
That is a critical detail to keep in mind. But before we get too deep into that mystery, let's just indulge the classical dream one more time. If you were a visitor there, what would that experience have been like?
I think it was meant to be one of total sensory immersion. If you take that imagined walk at sunset through the tiered landscape, the whole point was to overwhelm your senses. You wouldn't just see the green.
You feel it.
You'd feel it. Walking up those terraces, the first thing you'd notice is the temperature drop. A cool mist rising from fountains and pools.
And the sound.
The constant sound of water. Not just still pools, but flowing streams. Maybe even little waterfalls cascading down channels to irrigate the lower tiers. The whole structure would just be alive with the murmur of water.
And the scent. These weren't just local plants. The sources mention aromatic vegetation.
So it would have smelled like a foreign, mountainous landscape. It was designed to feel utterly, physically different from the dusty air of Babylon.
A constructed ecosystem.
Precisely. And that brings us to the really incredible part of the puzzle. The thaumatta. The thing that made this a true wonder wasn't just the plants.
It was the engineering underneath.
It was the impossible engineering required to sustain it.
Right. Because greenery in the desert is one thing, but keeping mature trees alive on top of a 20-meter-high artificial hill, that takes sophisticated plumbing.
It required technology that seemed to defy gravity. One writer, Philo of Byzantium, he was an engineer, he described the watering system.
What did he say?
He wrote about streams of water emerging from elevated sources, and this is the key part, water being forced upwards through bends and spirals to gush out higher up by mechanical devices.
Forced upwards through bends and spirals. I mean, that sounds exactly like an Archimedes screw.
It does.
But wait, Archimedes lived centuries after Nebuchadnezzar. Is that an anachronism?
And this is where the deep dive gets really interesting. You're absolutely right. Archimedes lived hundreds of years later, yet the technology described is, basically a helix or a screw pump.
So who was using it first?
Well, this is where the Assyriologist Stephanie Daly brought in some fascinating evidence from the north, from Assyria. She pointed out that the Assyrian word alamitu translates to date palm.
Okay.
And she noticed that the spiral growth pattern of a date palm trunk looks uncannily like the shape of a screw pump.
That's incredible. So the observation of nature led directly to the design.
Precisely. And Sennacherib's own inscriptions, he was an Assyrian king, they mention using devices linked to the alamitu over wells. So the evidence suggests the Assyrians were using a screw-based mechanism to lift water long before Archimedes.
So the real wonder, the themata, wasn't the garden itself, but this hidden, gravity-defying system of pipes and spirals underneath.
The engineering made the garden possible. And in the ancient world, manipulating water on that scale was like commanding the elements.
Okay, so now let's take all that awe and just run it straight into the brick wall of historical reality. The engineering is a marvel, the story's romantic, but when we get back to Babylon, there's that silence.
That silence is the most significant clue we have. As we said, Nebuchadnezzar II was a prolific builder. His administration kept meticulous records on cuneiform tablets.
He recorded everything. His palace, the walls, temples.
Everything. So to just omit a massive 20-meter-high, gravity-defying garden, it borders on historical impossibility.
And it's not just the Babylonians who were silent. Early Greek historians, like Herodotus.
Who is usually seen as quite reliable.
He traveled to Babylon. He wrote at length about the magnificent walls, the structures, but he completely overlooks the gardens.
So when you have a builder who documents everything and a major historical witness who describes everything but the gardens, the question has to shift.
From where was it to? Was it ever there at all?
Exactly. And the archaeology doesn't help. Robert Coldwell's excavations in Babylon around the turn of the 20th century, they never found definitive proof.
I remember reading he found some arched substructures he thought might be the base.
He did, and it was a promising idea, but the location and the structure just didn't match the classical accounts of these high, elevated stone terraces. So we're left with this stunning description, but nothing on the ground in Babylon to back it up. So if the evidence doesn't fit Babylon, let's follow it. Let's look at the alternative theory, relocating the entire wonder 300 kilometers north to the Assyrian capital, Nineveh.
The Nineveh hypothesis.
This theory takes all the classical descriptions and tries to reconcile them with the most compelling ancient texts we actually have. And it centers on the Assyrian king Sennacherib.
Who ruled earlier than Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes, from 705 to 681 BCE. And unlike Nebuchadnezzar, he left a fantastic record.
What did he claim to have built?
Well, on a cuneiform prism, he details his palace and its surroundings. And there's a passage that just perfectly mirrors the classical descriptions.
What does it say?
I raised the height of the surroundings of the palace to be a wonder for all peoples. A high garden imitating the Amanus Mountains I laid out next to it, with all kinds of aromatic plants, orchard trees.
A high garden imitating mountains full of exotic plants. It's the same vision, but attached to a name and a place that actually recorded it. What about the water system? The real wonder.
The engineering at Nineveh was, frankly, far superior to anything in Babylon at the time. Sennacherib commissioned an absolutely epic project.
Which one?
He brought mountain water to Nineveh via a massive 90-kilometer canal system.
90 kilometers, just to water a garden.
To water his garden and palace complex, yes. And that canal system included the 280-meter-long Jerwan aqueduct. What's astonishing is that it was built using concrete half a millennium before the Romans.
Wow.
Experts estimate this whole system could deliver up to 300 tons of water a day to the gardens. That is the kind of engineering you need to make a desert feel like a temperate mountain range.
So the Nineveh location is just much more convincing. And you mentioned there are physical depictions too.
Yes, bas reliefs discovered in Sennacherib's palace at Nineveh. They clearly show a tiered garden with running water, structurally similar to the classical descriptions, and they even show arched structures that look just like the Jerwan aqueduct.
So you have the text, the infrastructure, and a picture of it. all pointing north to Nineveh.
Exactly.
So why did the later Greeks get it so wrong? Why give it credit to Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon?
It's a classic problem of historical conflation. Later Greek and Jewish traditions, they often just lumped the great Mesopotamian empires together. Babylon was the more famous city, the ultimate symbol of Eastern power.
And Nebuchadnezzar was the most famous king, especially because of his role in destroying Jerusalem.
Right, so he becomes the historical shorthand. If you need to credit a massive, ancient, magnificent achievement from the East, you default to the biggest name you know.
So Sinatra built the real engineering wonder, but Nebuchadnezzar got the romantic story because he was a bigger cultural figure in the histories that survived.
That seems to be what happened. The Nineveh theory just fits the evidence so beautifully. But because no ancient source explicitly says it was in Nineveh, not Babylon, the location remains suspended. A beautiful speculation caught between two great empires.
It's a deeply satisfying theory, though. It suggests the story was real. The descriptions of this paradise, the incredible ingenuity, they just migrated 300 kilometers south in our collective memory.
I think so. The legend endures as a testament to that powerful human longing for beauty and our capacity for monumental ingenuity in the harshest of lands.
So, as we close out this deep dive, what does this tranquil mystery really teach us about history itself?
I think it teaches us that the greatest wonders aren't always defined by the stones we find, but by the power of the human imagination to preserve a compelling dream. The Hanging Gardens remain one of the seven wonders, not because we can point to them on a map, but because the dream of creating a perfect, green paradise against all odds was simply too magnificent for us to ever forget.